Welcome to Cosmic Comics, Games and Collectibles, your zen of geekism. We carry comics old and new, magazines, toys, games like Pokemon, Magic, D&D. Want Godzilla, Ultraman, Star Trek, Ninja Turtles, Funko Pops? You'll find it all here. Shop our Cosmic Sound Room and pick up a record or two. Enjoy our Comic Coffee Lounge with a cup of Sasquatch coffee or a delicious menu item while geeking out over a super cool movie on our big screen. Come by and say hello to Maui. Cosmic Comic, Games and Collectibles. Superman loves us, and so will you.
And good evening, everybody. I am RJ Carter, Senior Managing Editor here at criticalblast.com. And once more, we are going into one of our nightly endeavors into exploring the world of crowdfunded comic books and graphic novels. And one of the joys of doing this is that I am getting to meet so many people who, I've seen your names published, but I've never really had a chance to talk with you unless I go to a convention. Conventions are gone, so we're going to do it with this internet thing. So we've had several of you on here multiple times, but tonight I've got a new face to work with. I'm going to be talking with Mr. Mike Tiener and Midnight Highway #2, his Kickstarter, and I'm bringing him on now. And Mike, can you tell me real quick, am I delayed at all because my preview mouth is not matching up with the words coming out of my head?
I think it is off a little bit. I can see that. Yeah.
Why in the world is that? I've got like almost everything shut down. You know what? I've got this PDF program up and running here. Maybe that's draining
I had to
resources.
close out some stuff too. Yeah.
I shouldn't have to close out anything though, because I'm like, okay, everything is closed down. Everything is down except StreamYard. I even closed the Twitter window. So if it's anything else beyond that, then it's Microsoft shoving an update at me.
Could be.
I hate when they do that because, like, I'm hardwired into the router now. I'm not even using Wi-Fi, so I should have no troubles at all. And if I do, then it really makes me curious.
I wish I could help you. I mean, the extent of my expertise with this is turning it off and turning it back on.
Oh,
so
well, yeah. I'm 30 years in the IT industry, and that's my first thing to tell everybody to do too. But I'm not in a position where I can do that right now. So that's not an option. We'll plow ahead and go on anyway. So Mike, this is your second issue of Midnight Highway, but is this just your second comic? I mean, how long have you been playing in this game?
Been around for about 5-6 years. My first book that I worked on was a superhero book. It was just something very simple to get me started, get familiar with the process of making a comic. I kind of went into it, with a few friends that already kind of had tested the waters for me already and kind of gave me some guidance and some support just to get started. And then as time went on, I started to branch out and make more series. So right now I have 3 series active, and then I have 2 more series that I'll be putting out by the end of this year. So I'm going to have 5 active series of books.
You haven't been punished enough yet then, right?
I think it's addictive. I don't know. For anyone else that makes comics, they probably know what I'm talking about. I kind of compare it to music. Everyone's always excited about making the next album, right? They put out music, they play it for a couple years, and they're ready to make a new album. So a new series is like a new album for me. So I've always got new ideas and have to branch off and give them a shot and see if there's a response.
So are you self-publishing all of these books, or have you taken them to different publishers?
Yes. I haven't really pursued publishers yet. One approached us about Midnight Highway though. So more to come on that. It was more about what kind of control we would retain over the property before we sign it over for,
Yeah.
distribution. And a lot of them want to have the ability to license and sell it as a television property or a film property and things of that nature. So a lot of publishers that were interested in Midnight Highway that reached out, that was one of the points. They wanted to make sure that they had that level of control, and they wanted some creative control too, which we were just not really fond of that. So we wait until we get a deal that we really like.
Yeah, I mean, right now, you're in control. It's your baby, and it's all 100% you. As soon as you sign a contract to somebody, you've indentured servituded your character and your IP.
Right. And I don't care too much about the IP right now to really let it go so early on. That's kind of what has made me kind of be cautious of that right now. But I understand there's a lot of advantages to it as well. I don't have a very big network, and I'm sure a publisher could definitely increase the outreach of any of the properties that I have. So I've considered it. It's just, like I said, it just comes down to the right deal that really complements what kind of control I want to maintain over the property.
Okay, so you said you got like 5 different books going on right now. Are these all set sort of in the same? Are you using a shared universe model, or are they just 5 distinct stories that just happen to be graphic novel in format?
Right. No shared universe here. There are a lot of people doing that, and hats off to every one of them. I think that creates so much complication. And I'm a simple kind of person. I'm very simple-minded. I'm like, just one step ahead of a caveman. So I need things very simply laid out for me. And I don't want to create too many rules and confinements, I guess, is really the reason for that. It'd be fun one day to make it work to where there was a way that all the properties could connect, but no, they weren't made with that intention.
You've sort of created the way for that to happen with Midnight Highway, because as you've called it, it's an Alice in Wonderland meets the Twilight Zone, and when you got Alice in Wonderland, that's a portal story. So you have portals, and they could open up in multiple places, and we're going to kind of talk about what the story is all on about as we move along here. And I guess we could do. No, I was going to ask you why you're in comics. I mean, what do you remember the first comic book you read, Mike?
Yeah, I mean, I'm very vanilla. I read Spider-Man and X-Men growing up. Those were like the two. Like as a kid, there wasn't anything cooler than the X-Men. I liked them as a kid. I had a huge break from comics from junior high to high school. I played sports and played music, and those were my 2 loves. When I got to college, I hooked up with this friend who was like, "Hey, I know you don't read comics, but you've got to read this one. It's really awesome. It's something really unique. I think it'll be something that really pulls you in. It's called Walking Dead." And that was, I read it and I was like, well, I don't like zombie stuff, but I do like the way the story's written, and it kind of opened up my eyes to really what's out there that's beyond, the superhero genre. And, it was a black and white book, and that wasn't something that I was, that wasn't something that would necessarily pull me in right away. There were a lot of things working against it. And the fact that it won me over, despite the fact that I had no interest in those things, generally speaking, shows, proof to the viability of a lot of independent writers and creators that are out there right now. There's probably so many amazing books out there that just no one knows about right now that could be the next big thing, right? So there's just this endless, it's an ocean out there.
That's why we're here. That's to get people and their work in front of more eyeballs. At least 6 a night, 6 eyeballs a night we get people in front of.
That's something.
So at some point, though, you decided that you liked comics enough that you wanted to try to make some of your own.
Yeah.
So somewhere you went from the somewhat disinterested but intrigued to the, I got to do this.
I had a friend. I went to school to do electronic media journalism. And then one of the professors there was really inspiring, introduced me to Hitchcock, really got me into film. And then I decided I was going to stop going to school there and go to film school. And I almost went to film school, and then decided to actually join the workforce. And in that time frame, just right there in the middle of that kind of that crosshair or that crossroads scenario, someone broke it down for me that comics are essentially storyboards for television and film properties. And it blew my mind, because I had all these movies that I wanted to make. And here I have something that's well within my budget, well within my reach to create stories, and commit them to paper. And so then I started several years of reading comics just to get more familiar with the format and understand more about the storytelling mechanics of it, and started to fall in love with it. And now it's my preferred method of storytelling. I have no desire to pursue film and television or anything like that now. Now I just want to tell stories through comics.
I'm guessing you've probably been through things like, Scott McCloud's Understanding Comics, and then Will Eisner's Sequential Art.
Nope.
Oh,
I haven't read the right stuff. I've just read comics. That's all I've done.
Just threw yourself into the pool and started swimming.
Yeah, I didn't. And it's probably not wise. But I wanted to understand. I wanted to be able to explain to myself why I liked something or I didn't, and understand and analyze things as you go along. It's one thing to watch a movie and start pulling it apart and picking it apart and talking about what you like and don't like, and be able to extrapolate on that and be able to break it down through your own critical analysis. And then it's one thing to have it dictated to you. So I wanted to be able to do that on my own first. But there are a lot of books out there that I know that I need to read, especially as I'm trying to venture further into publishing and stuff too.
Yeah, I don't know if they're a need to. If you're successfully publishing now, then you're at the point where you can start writing your own book about it. I really like Scott McCloud's Understanding Comics, but for me, it's useful in explaining to normies why the comics medium is valid and why it works the way it does and how it's different from other ones. Because I've had people say, like, why would you not just go watch the movie of something if you want to see the pictures and hear the story at the same time? Like, because it's and then I get into the whole left brain, right brain, both working in conjunction together because of the way the thing, and they're like, oh, I get it. You're a nut. Okay.
Well said, though.
So when did you finally get your first book successfully published?
So that was in 2017, and
That's still fairly recent.
Yeah. It's it took about a year to make it, and then that was just through budgeting and things of that nature, and it was more of a curiosity then. Now it's a hobby, so it's a very active hobby. So yeah.
It's a very expensive hobby.
It is. It really is.
Comics is that thing where it's that one thing where you can for a few $1,000s you can walk away only losing a few hundred if you're lucky.
Yeah.
But was crowdfunding influential in that? I know 2017 was sort of like right at the cusp of a lot of comic book creators jumping into the crowdfunding scene.
Right. Yeah. So for me, it was difficult to get that funded. I think what helped with that first book was, friends and family really came through. That's what caused that one to fund. I had, I think, 60 backers on the book. Usually if a book only has, judging by the rate of what, when you don't consider the friends and family support, it wouldn't have funded. Which is still a win. It's great that you have family that believe in you and friends that believe in you and support you too. But from that initial project getting 62 backers, now each campaign averages about 260. I had one that spiked and I had 560 on it. So it's starting to understand and learn what's appealing to that community of readers and consumers. That I'm still trying to figure out. This will be my 7th Kickstarter, I think. I'd have to go back and look, but I think it's 7.
So have you been consistently Kickstarter? Have you tried, crossing over to the other platform, the Indiegogo platform, to see if any concept works better there than it did on Kickstarter, or vice versa?
It's a good question. I've been thinking about that because I do notice a lot of creators that I follow will run a campaign on Kickstarter and then run one on Indiegogo immediately after for the same property because they know that they get a different audience over there.
Yeah.
No real reason why I haven't done it. It's just, I guess I've just gotten so familiar with Kickstarter that I've just stayed exclusive with it. But yeah, I've definitely considered branching out. Anything that kind of increases my outreach really is what I'm trying to do right now.
It's really hit or miss. I've talked with people who are like, we do great on Kickstarter. We've tried Indiegogo and didn't make anything. I've had a lot of people who are like, oh, I'm Indiegogo because I can't get anything moving on Kickstarter. And then you got people like Tim Lim, who just, said, yeah, I make $1 million on Kickstarter and I go make another $1 million on Indiegogo. It's just, he's killing it with the books he's working on.
I like that model. Make $1 million on both.
Yes. No, why not both? So tell me about Midnight Highway here. This is, we're jumping into the second issue. So there's some, and it is a catch-up tier on this. It's 1 and 2. So if you missed one, you can still get number 1 with this campaign, which hasn't launched yet, by the way, folks. But the link to the pre-launch is right below the video. And if you just click on that, you can click the follow button, and you'll get all the email notifications between now and tomorrow at midnight when you click that launch button, right?
Right. We're going to do a Facebook Live tomorrow night. This Midnight Highway is co-created. I partnered with another indie writer who he's a friend, really. I really respect the guy, Alex Madej. He has a real passion for the material, the subject of Midnight Highway. So we're going to be on Facebook Live tomorrow night at 11:30 Eastern Standard Time. And we're going to do a 30-minute breakdown, do some giveaways and stuff. And then we're going to launch the campaign right at midnight. I've got a lot of people that, for whatever reason, are really all about being the first backer on these campaigns. I don't know. I guess there's a point of pride in that. So there's a little bit of competition out there. So we're just trying to build some awareness, create some competition, friendly competition, and bring some energy to the launch and kind of make it an event. And that's what we're going to do tomorrow night. It launches on the 14th.
Once you got fans that are wanting to be the first in the gate, it's that's when you're onto something. So if you got people already wanting to be the first backer on Midnight Highway number 2, you gotta be sitting there thinking, we're doing something right with this one.
We're really proud of it. Like, we love it, and it's not to say that I doubt there's a creator out there that, conceives a story that they want to tell. It doesn't have a love for it, right? It's a passion project. Every book you put out is a passion project.
Right.
But there's a lot of parents out there that say they don't have a favorite kid, but I'm the kind of parent that can definitely tell you I have a favorite kid, and Midnight Highway is certainly that. It embodies all the things that both Alex and I love about cinema, about television, about comics, and it's inspired by the 80s. And we were 80s kids. We grew up. I was born in 84. He's 87. But we grew up with parents that were constantly exposing us to the shows they watched in the 80s and the music they listened to in the 80s. So even when we're 8, 9, 10 years old, we're just watching stuff from the 80s. And that definitely is the backdrop and the influence for Midnight Highway.
Your parents did it right, by the way.
It's the best era. It really is the best era. There's I just saw somebody in chat say hail to the chat and all the 80s kids. Amen. So there is, having said that, at Midnight Highway, it's a very simple premise, but there's just so much you can do with this. And that's kind of the idea, it's just this really explorative adventure, so it's just this kid. He's just this senior in high school who stumbles upon this mysterious highway out of nowhere. He's on this highway that's endless. It's nighttime always, and he is just trying to get back home, and Alice in Wonderland was not much different in that regard. She just navigated through all these different bizarre characters and circumstances. And, there wasn't any real rhyme or reason to it all. You don't understand why one thing led to another, and that was kind of chaotic. And Midnight Highway is the same way. So that's kind of the backdrop and really the premise. But again, the highway itself is just this supernatural plane of existence where all things supernatural exist.
So you said he just kind of ends up on it. I mean, was there a chain of events in that first issue that I mean, does he go to bed and wake up and he's like, holy crap, I'm on a highway?
Yeah. So in the first issue, he's on a date with the love of his life, Kelly, and he drops her off at home. He's heading home. He's going to call her when he gets home. Life's great. He comes across a deer in the middle of the road, and it won't budge. It won't move. And he's honking at it. He gets out. He comes up to it, starts to notice something's off about it. And then at that moment, something happens. There's this big reveal. There's a monster. And then there's this, chase sequence, and things start to kind of peel apart. You start to see more and more of the environment that he's in. And by the end of the issue, we reveal the highway to you in its raw form. Yeah. And honestly, there's the idea is that there's moments where it's definitive, and there are moments where he's pulled back to reality, and it almost feels like he's not on it anymore. And then we remind you that he's still on it. So that kind of helps give you that nice contrast of like all the surreal things that he's seeing, and then zapping him out of it and making him feel like he's safe and at home again, and then pulling him right back out of that to pull him back through a terror or something odd and bizarre. So
if Neil Gaiman's Neverwhere taught me anything, it's that if you interact with these things from whatever dimension it is, you get sucked into it. Leave them alone.
Right. And he just didn't have a choice. That's he didn't have a choice. And that's why, I only have one path. I have to go straight through all this. There's no turning around. In the story, when he turns around, he's still going in the same direction. So there's just this listless feeling to it all of almost hopeless. This is I have to accept whatever happens next and embrace it and unravel this mystery however and when I can. But I want to survive, and I want to get back home to Kelly.
All right, so we got a chat growing here that are all taking stock of what's going on with Midnight Highway. Heroinberg obviously is our wrench in the chat. He's the one who's able to put the links up, like the link to the Kickstarter pre-launch page. Nicholas Gear is going to be on the show later next week. We're looking forward to that. Hey, Nicholas, glad you're here. And, of course, the inimitable Ryan Wynn from Hammerella is here.
Hey, Ryan.
And
I'm going to be on with him in a couple weeks.
Yeah, he's been on our show, not nearly enough, but we've enjoyed every time we've had him on. And I'm looking forward to reading Hammerella when that gets here. So when he's on this highway, first of all, your main character's name again is
Alex.
Alex. Okay. Oh, like Alex P. Keaton.
Like I'll say one thing about Alex real quick. There's been a lot of Alexes that have worked on the book. So I've got the co-creator Alex. I've got the main character's name's Alex. The main artist on the book is Alex. His name's Alex. And then we've had some concept artists work on the book who also had the name Alex. So, so 5 Alexes.
Yeah, that's almost like a Doctor Who episode, the 5 Alexes.
It is. We got the name from Alex from Last Starfighter.
I love that movie. I just got that on Blu-ray last year, and
it's amazing.
Reminded me again of how much I just loved it when I watched it again.
It's amazing.
They're remaking. They're not remaking it, but they're sequeling it. I've heard.
Yeah,
haven't heard much about it, but I know that it was out there on IMDb, and I'm like, oh, I want to see a sequel so bad, and I never want it to be made at the same time.
Right, yeah.
I'd rather the sequel in my head just stay in my head. It's like, yeah, Alex Rogan comes back one day, and he takes his little brother with him and trains him in the Starfighter Corps. And,
yep. Or his brother's looking for him, like that was what I was thinking, was maybe his brother's trying to, go find him. Maybe that's kind of the backdrop.
Yeah, it's like,
Trying to be his brother's score.
What if Peter Quill had a younger brother? That kind of a thing in the MCU world. So when Alex is on the highway, does he have any kind of transportation? Is he thumbing it, or is he just kind of walking like David Banner and the Hulk?
Yeah. The car is a character in this. His car is a 1978 Gold Trans Am, and that is his baby. And he one of the things about this is it's about this a boy in his car kind of story. There's going to be things that happen to the car. The car is an essential component as he goes through the highway. The car itself, the radio station gets possessed, and there's Midnight Highway radio always playing, and there's a radio host that's talking to him and narrating and interviewing people and playing songs. And it's this interactive character that just pops in and out, sometimes for exposition purposes, sometimes just for humor, sometimes to really provide an unsettling component to the story. But that all kind of ties into the car itself.
So what kind of situations does he run into on the highway? I mean, what makes it unique from the real world that he can tell, other than the fact that suddenly he's on a highway? How can he tell he's not in reality?
So where the story's kind of early in its inception still, because we're just launching issue 2, I can tell you that he's still questioning at this phase. He's still questioning, hey, where am I? What's happening? At the beginning of issue 2, there is a little bit of exposition into the highway, because we actually introduced the Midnight Highway at the very end of the first issue. And the last page really says it all. Once you see it, it's a real visual treat. The art team did a great job. So that was the first visual indication that he was, not in Kansas anymore. And then as we go through issue 2, there are, it's an acid trip. I'll just go ahead and say that right away. There are some psychedelic things that occur. So there are moments where he gets pulled out of the Midnight Highway and he's back at home in his car in the garage with his girlfriend fixing it up. It's like the first day when he bought it and it was a hunk of junk, and they fixed it together. So it goes back to a memory of him, and he's reliving that memory, and that's kind of tripping him out. But then he settles back into it for a moment, and then suddenly when he's in the car with his girlfriend driving it, well, something happens on the road, and then he gets jerked back onto the highway. It just snaps him right back in. So he knows he's not home, or he gets tricked into believing he's home, and then he's not home. And he's going to, in issue 2, he's going to get to a point of acceptance that I really am not home. And now I've got to really figure out what to make sense of this. Issue 2 takes place in a haunted arcade. That's the setup. So he comes across a haunted house that has a bright neon lit sign in front of it that says arcade. All these ghosts come out of the woods and start going into the house. So, the highway, there's no other path. It's just this road led to this house. So he has to go into this house. This is the next stop for him. So he has to figure out why he's being led there and what he needs to figure out to get out of there and move forward.
Now, you've mentioned that he's being led somewhere, which lends itself naturally to the idea that someone's in control of this, and they've chosen him for a reason. Which, being an 80s kid in 80s movies, you start thinking of the chosen ones like Atreyu and characters like that. Is there something about Alex historically in his past that he doesn't know of, or just for what reason he was chosen to take this Midnight Highway quest?
No reason. And really what we do is we have a back page in every issue where another indie writer, we ask them to write a short story, and they create a character that writes their own account of being on the Midnight Highway, or something that was supernatural and mysterious that happened at around midnight while they were driving home or driving, somewhere on an interstate or a highway, they experience something supernatural. And so it's their account. So there isn't a chosen one. Well, there is, because they got to experience something from the Midnight Highway. They drove through it, even just for a blip, but they got to experience it. So, I mean, think about it this way. What's great about this, we think, Alex and I both think this, is that we've all had those moments where we've been on a late night drive and something really eerie happens, something really unusual. And sometimes we also tune out, we're listening to music where our thoughts wander and we miss the turn that we were supposed to take, or how did we get home? I don't even remember making all these turns. And that's such an amazing feeling to kind of go back and think that how did we navigate through all of that without really paying attention? And the idea is that a Midnight Highway experience could exist in moments, or it could exist in a lifetime for some people. So there isn't really a chosen one. We've all probably been on the highway and didn't realize it.
And Alex is just suddenly aware that he's been on it. I've done the same thing before. I used to drive Chicago to St. Louis every weekend when I was in college in '85. And it'd be like plenty of times I'd look, oh, I'm in Springfield. How did that happen?
Yeah. And I do that too. My job, I do a lot of traveling. And so those late night drives are everything. I listen to music, and it really lets your mind just, that's where you create, and the concept of Midnight Highway started there. It was a late night drive, and everything that we've chosen to put in this is definitely with intention and purpose behind it, for sure.
Yeah. And you talk about the short stories that you commissioned. There are so many urban legends, so to speak. We used to call them ghost stories when I was a kid, but they've graduated now to urban legends. The hitchhiker you pick up here, the Pee Wee Herman scene with Large Marge.
That's right. I forgot about that.
There's lots of highway horror incidents being critiqued.
Hold on one second here. Hey, Alice, can you get Jack? Okay. My dog's awesome. I love him, but he goes nuts.
So when you're putting this campaign together here, what kind of, obviously it's the book. The book is going to be the main draw, but what are the goodies? What are we going to get with the book, or what do we have? Are you doing stickers, bookmarks, metal covers, life-size dioramas? I don't know, whatever you can to attract attention to it.
There's been a lot of things that we've considered doing on future campaigns. I'll tell you what we really liked about the campaign for issue 1 and what we continue to do for issue 2, and I'll tell you about a couple new rewards. One of the things that we did for issue 1 is we definitely wanted to pull back influences and things that we really enjoyed from a media standpoint in the 80s, and one of those was 3D. So we made a 3D version of the book. We found a 3D artist. It's his natural skill set is to transpose images into 3D, the blue and red type,
Nice.
And so the whole book, issue 1, is in 3D. No text. It's just the art, all in 3D. So that was a big hit. And we got a lot of feedback from everybody that got it and said, hey, it's really good 3D. It's not gimmicky, cheap 3D. This is actually really good textured 3D. And so we knew that we were going to do that again for issue 2. So we are doing that again for issue 2. We also did glow-in-the-dark merchandise. That was another big thing from when we were kids. So we made glow-in-the-dark glasses, glow-in-the-dark T-shirts, stickers, art prints, things of that nature. We're doing that again for issue 2 because those were also some pretty big wins. And then we also did something in issue 1. We got a pinup that is augmented reality. So you download the Art of Vive app and you look at the art through the Art of Vive app, and the illustration comes to life, becomes an animated piece. So the main cover for issue 2 is also augmented reality. So everybody that buys a print copy of this book, they're going to get an augmented reality piece of art. So that was something that we did for issue 2. The only things that we did differently in issue 2 in terms of rewards is that we also added a VHS. So you can get a VHS case. There's going to be a VHS in it. I'm not going to go in too much detail what's going to be in the VHS, but it's not a blank VHS. There's stuff on it.
Very cool. All I can remember about VHS tapes is pull the tab.
yeah. That's
or if you had a movie you didn't like, tape over the tab, and now you don't have to buy a tape for the next recording you're doing.
Absolutely.
One of the things that I'm thinking of that was very 80s, and I haven't seen anybody do it yet.
Alice, get Jack.
It didn't help. You turn on, you turn off. I still hear you. I don't think that mic's doing anything.
Our dog is amazing. He's loud though.
But I'm looking at the image that we got up here for the backdrop, and you got the chartreuse and the fuchsia, these very bright colors against a stark black background, and I'm thinking that would really pop if that black was like black velvet under a black light. Remember black light posters in the 80s? Well, you weren't in the 80s, but you've probably seen them.
Oh, I had black light posters. Yeah, no, and listen, I went to college, man. So
okay,
I was around people that had those everywhere. And I honestly, we talked about that too. That is, we checked the costs associated with that. It is, it's expensive. So we want to make sure. We definitely still want to do it. We need to get a good following and a good financial base set up, but we definitely have the intention of exploring that for sure.
Well, I've just been thinking, somebody should do it, because I always thought it would end up being one of Ethan Van Sciver's posters, because he's always doing these huge Salamandroid posters. And he's got the big colors and the black on. Like, somebody will do Black Velvet sometime who's got a big campaign going. But yeah, it is pretty expensive. So I could see it not going that way.
I definitely, that was one of the first things we actually talked about when we were going over rewards, is like, hey, we should probably do, something that's black light reactive, just from the color scheme that you can see in the book and everything. It just kind of makes sense to do it, and, again, it's definitely something we want to do. I think the next thing that we really want to do is we want to make an augmented reality short story. So the idea is that you would see panels come to life. So as you're going through the pages, everything's animated and there's motion. So I think that's what we're going to explore on issue 3. Something that I did skip over a reward. I don't even know why I didn't think about this, but so I mentioned the rewards. I mentioned the character, the radio station. All of that playing a huge part in the story. Well, we did a podcast where it is the radio show, and the host of the radio show is the radio host that's in the comic. And so we have one episode out. It's on Spotify, and we're going to continue to make those as we go along too. So people get that as rewards as well. It's
sort of to immerse themselves into the Midnight Highway world there.
Yeah, absolutely. And the guy that does the voice, he's also who does the voice in all of our project videos. His name's Tom Reiser. I knew him from college. We hooked up with him because he has a love for all the same stuff that we do. He's a great, he works for television stations and radio stations and stuff. So he's already familiar with all of this, and it came very natural to him to write these short segments where he's a radio host interviewing all these supernatural characters that had experiences on the Midnight Highway. And he does an amazing job. He does all the voices, and it's sometimes when he would send back a file to us, we'd just be blown away because it sounded nothing like him. And he's done such a great job of just masking his voice as he's creating all these characters. But definitely worth listening to. And I guess I'll send a link to that too, because I'm really proud of what he did there.
Throw it in the
It's free. Everyone can listen to it.
I was thinking also would be really almost over the top cool. Not as over the top as the blacklight posters, but still, something. Find one of these toy companies like Matchbox or the even cheaper ones, and see who's got gold 78 Trans Ams get the car.
That's a great idea. Car decals we thought about too. Like rear view mirror decals and things of that nature. That's a great idea. Bumper sticker is a great idea. See, I should have talked to you earlier. You know, I'm getting ready to launch this thing tomorrow. I don't have enough time to get some more rewards, but that's brilliant.
That's what I do, Mike, is I spend other people's money on rewards that they haven't got put in their campaigns. I do it every single time. I'm like, yeah, you've got everything out there, but not this. And sometimes they go into it in the next campaign, and sometimes they don't. Because sometimes
I think that was a great idea, though. That makes perfect sense. You know, it works perfectly. So I think we probably will do that more than likely. I'm sure it's inexpensive to make. Hot Wheels sell for like $1.50. You know, they retail for that. So what does that tell you about their cost?
You can go to like a Johnny Lightning or something. Just put it out there. You could even have it. I don't know. Does this gold Camaro, gold Trans Am have a special paint job on it, or is it just gold?
Just gold.
Well, there you go.
I'm safe.
So did you have any images of this that you wanted to share here? Because, we can show what the campaign's going to look like when it launches.
Sure.
Tomorrow night at midnight, right?
Tomorrow night at midnight. And
Eastern time?
Eastern time. And I'll go ahead and share my screen if it's cool with you.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right.
We'll let you drive.
All right. Let's make sure I've got this up. Let me know if you've got it.
I've got it. Riverbend Bear, welcome to the chat. Appreciate you being here watching the show.
All right. Are we seeing the Kickstarter page?
We are seeing the Kickstarter page. I'm going to give it the full screen here for a while. We'll still hear you just so we can kind of see a little bit better there.
Okay. All right. So this is the project image that we settled on. You'll see more of that in the pages that follow. This is the main cover. This is the first time we're showing this, by the way. We were going to show this tomorrow, but I'm one of those people that ask for forgiveness later. So Alex will just have to forgive me. So this is the main cover. Cover A. Cool. This is the one that's augmented reality. This is cover B. I really like cover B. You can kind of see he's kind of exploding out of a portal with all these monsters and stuff.
We get to see some of that otherworldly stuff now.
Yeah. This is a breakdown of the story and everything. We got some really great pull quotes that we really, really like. Colin Bunn reviewed the book. So, nice. I mean, yeah, so we got that. And David Pepose, who's somebody that, I've read Spencer and Locke and the OZ, which are both really, really good books. Jay Sandlin, Amazing Nerd Show podcast, said something really nice about the project. This is page 1. This is the Midnight Highway. You can see it in all its glory. As you can see, there's just a lot of just interesting things that are, existing throughout the environment. Page 3, we skipped over a page. There's kind of something kind of spoilerly in page 2. So page 3 right here, that's the haunted arcade.
And it's right on the highway.
Yeah, it basically what it is it's right beside the highway. And the whole idea is that, considering that there's plants, there's all these objects and all these things that you can see off the highway, but when you come across something like this, I think it sends a clear message that you're supposed to check it out. So Alex is kind of drawn to it, and through some guidance of the radio station, he's kind of pulled off to go inside. And one of his goals is just to find a phone. He just wants to see if he can make a phone call. So and so he gets into the arcade and he's following all these ghosts. He's enticed into playing a game called The Gauntlet.
Hey, there was an 80s video game called Gauntlet.
Oh, I remember Gauntlet.
Wizard needs food badly.
Yeah, yeah. We played that NES port of it a lot growing up. So the game itself is called The Gauntlet, and it's different for everybody that plays it. It's the game that plays you. So for Alex, it unleashes this giant pinball that's chasing him throughout the arcade. Suddenly the floor breaks up. He falls through, which is, I love this image. This is one of my favorite pages in the series so far. I think that's
very rabbit hole.
Yeah, exactly. It's just a really great, metaphor for what he's actually going through. Something's chasing him even still as he's falling. He has no control. And that's all I'm showing right now. The book is 32 pages long. So as you can see, you've only seen 5 pages. Every page is just as colorful and as vibrant as those pages. And it's just we're not showing you what the book is really about. That's the thing. Like, you kind of get this idea that it's going to take place in an arcade and that you're going to see, you know, some gimmicks kind of associated with that. No, it definitely takes a hard left turn, and you have this whole other back half of the issue that's this whole other unique experience. This is the 3D page, just an example of it. So for anybody that has 3D glasses, you can go ahead and sample one of the 3D pages on the campaign. And then we get into the fun stuff, which is the add-ons. And here is the glow-in-the-dark screen print that I love it. I just got him back from the artist, Mateo Fuentes, who does the 3D version of the book, and his friend Leslie Norris. They got together and made this screen print. So this is what it looks like when the lights are on, and this is what it looks like when the lights are off.
Oh, sweet.
And they're limited too. There's only 20 of these. Well, really only 15, because 5 of these are saved for the highest tier that you can back. So there's really only 15 of these, and they're $20 a pop. They're 6x9, so it's a decent size to them. But yeah, $20 a pop on that. Here's the glow in the dark T-shirt.
Yeah. Heroin Burgers is calling Yakov Smirnov.
Yeah.
Game plays you.
Yeah, that's, and honestly, that was when we first came up with the concept of what we wanted the next adventure to be, because we don't look too far ahead. You know, we make the issue, then we kind of stop and talk about what we want to see next, and then we start building it out, because we don't want to have too much of a plan, because the idea is to come up with the best possible adventure when we're ready to tell it. And so that's why we don't try to map things out too far ahead. So, you know, with the game playing you know, that was one of the first things that we thought of, you know, like, hey, it should be in an arcade. Let's do an arcade. Well, what if it's not a game? It's not he's playing a game. It's that, you know, he's part of the game. He gets pulled into a game, and the game's different for everyone. It's a different experience for everyone. The game knows what your challenges are going to be and stuff. So it was kind of a unique concept. And
again, very, very 80s. I mean, you know, calls to mind things like Tron.
Yeah.
I'm liking that
great example
edition VHS there too. Well, I'm really looking at that Trans Am enamel pin. Enamel pins are a great idea. And I know that Wizard Pins has been advertising to me quite a bit lately. They found out I've been looking at pins, I guess, because I get all mine from Sticker Mule.
Oh, okay, gotcha. So it's really funny. Like, we're I knew somebody that made enamel pins, and or they were selling enamel pins. They were making all these different enamel pin designs, and reached out to them, and they offered to design the Trans Am. So Ellie Nichols is who designed the Trans Am enamel pin, and they hooked me up with their manufacturer, and they don't have a website. You have to contact them through email. So I was like, okay, this is a little interesting. So and then we got these enamel pins back from them for very, very cheap, and they look great. It's actually kind of sparkly, so it's got like a glittery texture to it. Yeah, just like you would, just the kind of paint job that you would want on your Trans Am if it's going to be gold. You know, you want that shine. You know, you want that kind of metallic kind of flake kind of So that's how that enamel pin is. Now on the VHS, you know, that was designed by, I mentioned that we had a concept artist that worked on the book. Alex Vincent is his name. You should follow him on Instagram. He makes a lot of great retro art, all horror inspired. He designed this VHS cover for us and did a really good job with it. And, you know, I think that's really all the rewards. We kept it pretty simple. Here are the other books that are under my publishing brand, which is Bad Bug. So you've got the Black Jackets books, and then you have a book called Undercity Tales, which Ryan Wynn did a cover for Undercity Tales. So it's great that he's listening in on the show here, and you can see there's issue 1 of Undercity Tales. And then Pocus Hocus is the first book under my publishing brand that wasn't written by me. And I honestly had no creative input on this one. This book was made by an independent group of creators and an art team, and it's just under the publishing brand.
I love the title.
Yeah, and you know what's funny about that too is that what's great about it is they definitely acknowledge how stupid of a name it is. throughout the book too. It's the character's name, and every time he comes across a supernatural entity that finds out what his name is, they react in some way, like, wow, that's, and I thought Houdini was a stupid name. Like you get these funny little responses and stuff. But it's a fun little premise. It's kind of a Faustian tale. It's this guy that gives up his soul for actual magical powers, so he can be a successful magician. Then he becomes bored and disenchanted by it all, and so he decides, hey, I'm going to revert back, and I'm going to try to win back my soul. And that's the storyline for that one.
All right.
And then all the reward tiers are here. Yeah, that's it. All the reward tiers, and then here's the creative team, and we put everyone in there. So we wanted to give everyone a shout out. And then cool. I am done.
Now, you said that you haven't mapped this out very far. So it's kind of keeping things, I guess, fresh with each issue. But at the same time, is there an exit ramp for the Midnight Highway, or is this just something where you just proceed continuing to do this for as long as you can? And it's a sort, maybe one of those timeless kind of things where, okay, we've been publishing it for 17 years, but when he does finally get off of it, it's been a minute.
Yeah, I think we've had a lot of discussions about this. I think Midnight Highway is the kind of thing that we'll never stop telling stories on the highway. I think I'll be behind this until probably the day I die. I think Alex feels the same way. So as far as the story for the character that we're following right now, there's probably a certain end for him, but we'll probably just explore the highway through another character's eyes. Okay. I think there's so many stories to tell, but we don't have, it's not a limited series. It's not, we've talked about what would be a fitting end for Alex, the character. But we have not made a determination of how many issues before we reach that end. We're going to try to see how we naturally get there.
So other than him trying to get home, a la Sam Beckett, a la, David Banner trying to find a cure for the Hulk, is there an overarching storyline on top of that? Or is it literally like, I'm still on the highway trying to get home, hoping beyond hope that each next exit will be his last, or whatever kind of thing, and all of them stand alone? Because if that's the case, you've got a hell of a formula there for something that would be a nice Netflix kind of series, or some other media.
Yeah. So if to say that there's an overarching story to this, I wouldn't say that there really is, other than we want to thoroughly define the highway. That's the main character for us, is the Midnight Highway. Alex is just the witness, and so the overarching story really is just for everyone to get to a place where they truthfully understand the Midnight Highway the same way they would the Twilight Zone, the same way they would understand Wonderland, Oz, all these fantastical places where you seem to continue to learn more and more about it. And I mean, if we really go back and we think about it, let's talk about that for a second, because Twilight Zone was a different story every episode, and it was a different character. And there were pleasant episodes, there were uplifting episodes, there were terrifying episodes, unsettling episodes. And Alex's adventures on the Midnight Highway will be the same way. Even if we move beyond Alex as a character and start exploring it with other characters, it'll be the same sets of circumstances. But we do know when you think back to Alice in Wonderland, Alice herself probably wasn't that interesting of a character, right? She was just, again,
Careful.
She was, yeah.
Well, my first published novel was an Alice in Wonderland trilogy finishing piece.
Wow. Wow. I guess I need to read it. So, for us, it was more like she was the gateway for the reader, right? Like she was the introduction for us, So, and what fleshes out a character is their experiences over time in the setting, and how they react to it and how they grow from it. So we designed Alex, the character, to be simple in the beginning. And I know that we'll flesh him out as time goes on, because he's going to learn and adapt to the environment. So we can say the same thing about Dorothy, right? Dorothy is kind of a similar set of circumstances there.
Yeah, I don't care about Dorothy. You can do what you want.
Okay. All right, great. Yeah. But we that's that. From our perspective, we look at those characters as like, hey, they started out this way, and then at the end, we ask ourselves, well, what did we learn from all of this? Well, for everybody, it's different, and I think we kind of look at the highway the same way. It's just a series of events that we think are intriguing, with characters that we think are interesting. And eventually a lot of this is going to probably culminate in a conclusion that makes the best sense for Alex, the character. And then we move on.
I like it. All right. Well, I'm interested in reading this now. So I want to get my hands on book 1 and 2. So I probably won't be there at midnight tomorrow night, Eastern time, although it's 11 o'clock. So there's no reason why I couldn't be, because I'm usually up then. Maybe I will be backer number 1.
Hey, that would be fantastic. I'll give you a shout out and everything.
But is there anything else about the Midnight Highway or about your upcoming projects that we haven't touched on yet? I've kind of danced around the whole topic of what the book's about and where you're going with it. But
I honestly, I just would want to give a shout out to the art team on the book. They all played a huge part in this. It wouldn't be what it is if it wasn't for Alexander Malishev's artwork, Hedwin Zaldivar's colors, and Dave Lentz's lettering work. They really brought their A game with this. If you would read our script versus what ended up on the page, you would see how much they contributed overall to this story. They really, really lent their voice to this. So it isn't what it is without that art team. And then Alex Madej, as a co-creator, has done so much to inspire and challenge me as we're writing this story together. And it's been a fantastic experience working with this group of guys. And we're really, really proud of everyone that's done so much on the book. And for everybody that's considering reading it, we made this book because this was something, fans of 80s horror and science fiction, we made this for you all. Like this, we made it for ourselves because this is what we wanted to see. But we're making this because we want it to be entertaining. We wanted to entertain you.
There was a lot of entertaining horror in the 80s. Man, I know Twilight Zone we keep talking about, but Twilight Zone was 60s.
Yeah.
And then we had he went on to do Night Gallery in the 70s. But
right.
In the 80s we still had Tales from the Dark Side. We still had Creep Show. We had entertaining horror anthology entertainment, and we kind of lost it right about then. We didn't continue it on into the 90s for some reason.
Tales from the Crypt, I think, just kind of slowly kind of flipped over into the early 90s maybe, and then kind of tapered off, or that might have been, I don't know. I'd have to go back and look at that. I've got it right here. I don't know when it started. Let's see. Doesn't say on the box.
And you're right. Some of them were really creepy. Some of them were kind of humorous. They all had that kind of O. Henry twist in it, though. The thing that you didn't see that part coming at the end.
Right.
And that's kind of what I'm looking forward to seeing in Midnight Highway here, especially if you get into things that are, I want to see the Christmas episode of the Midnight Highway.
Yeah. Thank you for saying that. We talked about that. We want to subvert expectations a lot too. We want you to feel like you kind of got a gist of what's going on, and then turn it on you a little bit. So I'd love to see a Christmas episode of Midnight Highway as well.
Now I haven't. I'm probably asking this like 50 issues in advance. But does Alex pass any cars on the Midnight Highway, or is it just him alone? I mean, because I would imagine seeing headlights coming at you after so long, be like, wait a second, what?
Yeah, there are other people that exist on the highway, but to say that the highway is just this geographical location where everyone exists on the same plane, not always the case. So sometimes you're passing a weary traveler that's going somewhere, and you see them, but they don't see you.
Okay.
It's kind of meant to be this. It's a vaporous dimension in a lot of ways, where if he's seeing someone else and he's interacting with someone else, it's because he's supposed to. And there are those who exist on their own plane, their own story to tell, and Alex can only see him and can't interact with them. and they don't see him at all, and that's just part of the story.
Well-
So there is. It's just like, you know, like when we're driving down the road and we see people passing, or when we have a car pass us. Sometimes, you know, on those late night drives, you start thinking about what that person's life must be like, right? There's a little bit of a mystery to that person, and there's certainly a level of intrigue sometimes, and you're always kind of curious. Like, was it kind of like passing boats or whatever they call that?
Ships that pass in the night.
Yeah, ships that pass in the night. It's kind of a similar feeling.
And, you know, he might pass by somebody that does see him, but you know, only spectrally, and you know, suddenly he becomes the ghost in a new urban legend story that people are telling on the actual physical plane, whatever the real world is called. Amid all the other possibilities. Well, Mike, thank you so much for bringing the Midnight Highway to us tonight. This looks like it's going to be something fun to get into. So I'm very happy to recommend this one to all our viewers. So folks, you know, do this. Hey Siri, remind me tomorrow at 11 p.m. to check out Midnight Highway number 2.
Thank you, Siri.
That's done. And hopefully everybody else's phone just did the same thing to them.
I was just thinking, if it would just pick it up through the mic.
I've had that happen. I've had other people's phones respond to me telling my phone something to do. It's really weird. What was really weird was when I worked for a company that gave me their own iPhone, and then I had 2 of them, and then I could never ask my phone anything because they both respond at the same time.
Oh my, yeah.
and they respond differently. So it's like, you guys can't communicate between yourselves. Okay. Folks in the chat, thank you so much for showing up tonight. Encourage you to hit the share button on this. Don't have to hit the like button if you didn't like it. That's fine. But hit the share, not for me, but to get Mike's book out in front of more eyeballs so that your friends and your social media folk can see this recommendation and get in on the Kickstarter as well. The link to the Kickstarter preview is right below. And if you're watching it on the replay, the preview will roll right over into the actual campaign. So don't worry that you don't have the right link. It will forward itself. With that, we thank you for coming. We don't have a show without you. And as always, as we do every night,